Walks onto stage. Good whatever, lady and gentlemen. The film Annihilation, starring Natalie Portman, is an artistic science fiction horror. A little like the film Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson. Oh yeah, before I forget. Spoilers are ahead. Smirks. Annihilation is open to interpretation. And there are a few ways to take the story, which is based on the rememberings of a book with the same name. Alex Garland, the writer and director of the film, allowed the film-making team freedom to interpret the film, which provides the film with a fractured feel, which is part of the overall aesthetic. The film can be enjoyed as a piece of art, otherwise its meaning can be debated. Pauses. For example, you can summarize the plot as: a pan-dimensional marriage counselor provides a unique marital solution with minimum casualties under the circumstances. Smirks. The film starts with what appears to be a meteorite entering the Earth's atmosphere and hitting a lighthouse. Pauses. The film shows a few maps, and one suggests a highly complex field of some sort emanating from the impact position, with red appearing to indicate field strength. There is no indication of what the field is, although it could be an electromagnetic field strength. Although the Earth has an electromagnetic field already, which is not indicated on the map. The Earth's electromagnetic field would be indicated, unless the impact's field was very extreme, which is likely. Pauses. Another map shows a concentric set of circles, indicating a red zone, for the population affected by the field, called the shimmer, in the film. It is important to note that this map is 3 years after the other map. Pauses. Most reviews of the film take the line that the impact was a meteorite and of alien origin. This is unlikely, given the film's ending. A more scientific explanation is that a dimension intrusion occurred, with the tear in the fabric of space-time being exposed more and more to another universe and/or dimension. Smirks. We are going to have to ready an away mission and science this art shit. Pauses. Lena is the protagonist, a biologist, and the film is viewed from her point of view. A glass of water is used throughout the film to illustrate the refraction effect of the field, the shimmer, on the characters. When Lena's husband, Kane, returns home, after a year's absence, Lena is pleased to see him, though was not surprised he had been gone without contact for an extended period. We learn in the film that they were both in the military, and Kane was still on active duty. Kane's behavior suggests mental trauma and memory loss. Pauses. Critical Drinkers' review of the film mocked Kane's response to where he had been for a whole year. I don't know. Summing up his confusion over the plot, with the overall opinion reeking of frustration over there not being a single storyline for Annihilation. Given how the film was created, and nature of the writer and director, this frustration is born from design. Pauses. Lena echoes Kane's I don't know at the end of the film, hinting at her traumatization, or transformation, depending on how you choose to perceive the story. For clarity, I will be sticking with dimensional intrusion theory, and explaining why this is my perception. Pauses. Kane ends up in hospital, with major organ failure, to add to his mental trauma. Rolls eyes. This is where the pan-dimensional marriage counselor comes in. Lena had an affair with a work colleague, which was the cause of Kane's malaise, and desire to seek danger, at work. As it turns out, Kane had accepted a mission to explore Area X, known as the Shimmer. Lena loves Kane, but mentions that she craves an intellectual partner. Her colleague is an intellectual partner, but wants sex from Lena, even though they are married themselves. Smirks. The shimmering makes Kane an intellectual partner, since Lena believes Kane is of alien descent, by the end of the film. Pauses. The lead to the expedition Lena joins, is a psychologist. This hints to reason why Lena's expedition is all female. Since, at least one earlier mission was all male, and military-based. There is no indication of how many mission teams had been sent, only that technology was unable to penetrate Area X. And nobody returns. Pauses. The next mission is openly discussed in front of Lena, and she is allowed access to the observation platform, which includes numerous large instruments pointing at the shimmer. Clearly the organization in charge of containment and analysis of Area X are at the clutching at straws phase. The next phase being, can we nuke it? Pauses. The team pack their shit up into rucksacks and head to the shimmer, each with a long gun. Presumably. This scene is meant to inspire. From a male perspective, it appears idiotic and futile. Sending 5 women, lightly armed, into an area where you know military personnel have not returned is reckless. Especially 5 women, who have not been on a boot camp to bond and work out the practicalities of surviving at least 10 days in a swamp environment that includes alligators and possibly hostile alien life forms. Still, we're not watching Annihilation because we're practically minded. We're watching Annihilation because girl power and the mutated bear test audiences are never wrong. Pauses. Women work and think differently to men, and even after their memory collectively lapses, they push on, collectively, and empowered. Pauses. The smart money is on Lena, and the team lead, surviving the Girl Scout expedition. Although the team lead comes across as uninterested in anything, and suicidal. So maybe, just Lena then. Smirks. The shimmer affects plants and animals' DNA in real time, causing plants to evolve as they grow. Plants being the simplest, easily visible life forms. This behavior fascinates, rather than scares, Lena. Pauses. When one team member is nearly killed by a mutated alligator, it is Lena who puts it down. Go military training. On observation, the alligator's DNA was mutated enough to allow shark's teeth to grow, but not enough to grow angel wings. Pauses. Most people who review the film mention the mutated bear, mainly due to the alien filmography reference. The film's plot line itself is mutating. The bear's mutation appears related to contact with other species' DNA through consumption, which might be why the alligator had shark teeth, as its mutation is a lot less likely than a humanized bear. Pauses. The fate of Kane's mission into Area X is captured on video for Lena's team to review. Pauses. Kane and his teammates were consumed by the shimmer, as they consumed other species. It almost makes you want to go full vegan, even though everybody knows you should never go full vegan. Smirks. Some of the population of Area X appear to have been at the very least vegetarian, as they appear as garden installations, apparently transformed as they walked. Looks left. The physicist in the group decides that becoming a plant is a good idea. Looks right. After working out how the shimmer was affecting everything, unlike the audience or her teammates. Fuck this shit. I am out of here. Pauses. This leaves Lena to plod on through the film as best she can. Rolls eyes. Might as well see how this shit ends. Maybe there's a prize or something. The lighthouse is surrounded by crystalline structures, which resemble trees, giving the beach and the lighthouse an otherworld-like appearance. Some kind of fracturing that appears like ivy runs up the lighthouse, from where the meteorite penetrated its base. Pauses. In front of the lighthouse are human skeletons. presumably from the general population, or previous missions. This suggests that the boundary of the shimmer is hard to penetrate when leaving, causing the population to starve, as there was no sign of agriculture or shops full of tinned food. And anyway, consumption only accelerates mutation. Pauses. The inside of the lighthouse appears like a place of worship, or at least an art installation, created by the meteorite's impact, and the actions of Cain. In the Bible, Cain is spelt differently, and is used as a symbol of jealousy, violence, and the fallen nature of humanity. Humanity's response to an unknown occurrence is usually to blame a deity. Pauses. Lena decides to go down the impact hole, after learning about Cain's fate. When she hears the team leader's voice, has she learned nothing? Pauses. The impact hole opens out into a cavern, which is unusual, and has an odd, organic feeling, black-colored structure. Pauses. It is here that Lena begins to experience the same happening, as can be gleaned from Cain's short video. A three-dimensional Mandelbrot object floats mid-air in the chamber, directing its light towards Lena. Pauses. As a biologist, it might have appeared to be a large space flower. Although, from the look of it, it appears to be a pan-dimensional intrusion of some kind, with the chamber itself existing outside of Lena's universe. Pauses. The space flower obtains a sample of Lena's DNA and creates a humanoid in front of her, in real time. When she attempts to kill it with her long gun, tubules appear. When Lena attempts to escape, it appears in the lighthouse before she has even reached the end of the impact hole. Something is not quite right or left in this place. Pauses. From Lena's and the humanoid's movements, it appears that the humanoid is some kind of shadow. Me and my shadow. Strolling down the avenue. Me and my shadow. Not a soul to tell our troubles to. Pauses. Although this shadow is a little different, and pan-dimensional. The shadow's skin is dark, with a film of bioluminescence, like a fly's. Possibly another film-related, shimmer mutation. Smirks. Lena appears trapped by her shadow, slowly being suffocated. And you can see in her face, she is trying to work out how her actions affect her shadows. Like looking in a series of mirrors, and trying to work out how to move a marble. Or trying to use a Wii controller that needs to be set up. Pauses. There's a little confusion about whether the real Lena, or her shadow, survives the encounter, due to her perception, in telling the story, to the Inquisitor, and his congregation. Pauses. I don't know. Is the truth, as the story is told in first person, by the survivor of the shimmer. Logically, due to pre-shimmer awareness, the Lena in the chair, is in part, the original Lena. As much as anyone is, the original. Noting that, the entire human structure is recreated many times, in a human's lifetime. Pauses. I don't know. Pauses. It is clear that the original Cain is the one holding the phosphorus grenade. As we see the shadow, in the impact tunnel, as he prepares to kill himself. The bigger question is, why does Lena not tell the Inquisitor? Maybe, she feels it would be treated like E.T. Maybe, she thought Cain was a purified copy of her husband. And she can rebuild her life with him. Now that he is interesting, intellectually. Even though he is the same person, just with less baggage, upstairs. Maybe all husbands need to do, to save their marriage, is feign memory loss. And pretend to be an alien entity, to be more interesting. Smirks. Lena is not her shadow. Although she knows, her biology was changed, and is changing. Perhaps, there is an invisible bond between her and Cain now, they have experienced and been exposed to the shimmer. Clearly, the government and its agencies will have plenty to tidy up. Even with the shimmer gone. So why should she own up to her own suspicions? If it means a lifetime of isolation and experimentation. Would you? Pauses. With the main plot now covered, it is time to walk through the highlights of the end sequence, which is presented to the audience, uncommented, allowing for interpretation. From here on in, there is no exposition, commentary or questioning, by the Inquisitor. Lena drops her rucksack on the beach, symbolically representing, there is no coming back. In her mind. Pauses. There is no reason to leave the rucksack exposed, in the open, where the tide can carry it away. Lena already knows, time can be lost. Unless she comes back for it, within 12 hours, the rucksack is gone. Pauses. The crystalline structures are probably made from sea salt. Salt crystallizes when exposed to strong magnetic fields. For the salt to grow so tall, a very large magnetic field must be present. Did you know that large magnetic fields can cause unconsciousness? Due to tiny electrical currents created by changing magnetic fields, as the body moves? The more rapid the motion, and denser the electromagnetic field, the larger the current. Which explains a few things. Pauses. Ignoring the dead bodies. The entry point of the pan-dimensional intrusion is circular, with an odd fractal bubbling of the lighthouse structure. There are also lichens on the opposite wall of the lighthouse, suggesting terrestrial life has been mutated. Otherwise, the lighthouse structure appears intact. Pauses. Inside the lighthouse, we see the fractal bubbling on the inside, for the entry hole, as well as around the exit hole. That leads to the tunnel and cavern. Lena's focus is on the charred remains of Cain. Pauses. There must be a set of numbered files, in the camera, and Lena plays them in sequence. First seeing Cain's entry to the lighthouse. Pauses. Then Cain's shadow, and Cain's suicide note. Pauses. As well as the fully formed shadow, of Cain. That Lena had left back at the forward operating base. If you were not paying attention, you might have misunderstood the sequence. It is short, and Cain speaks with an odd accent, not heard, when his shadow spoke to Lena earlier. Pauses. Lena's interaction with the Mondale-brought dimension intrusion, is cold. Lena is studying the object, and it appears to be reciprocating. Pauses. Head on, the object looks like a light-emitting tunnel. Possibly a reaction to Lena's presence in the chamber, rather than an intelligent alien presence. Pauses. They say, the eyes are the window to the soul. Here, it might be, Lena is seeing herself, from the outside. As the dimensional intrusion, sees her. A small drop of blood falls into the object. Which is weird given how gravity works. Blood contains iron, so maybe, the magnetic field is that strong. But if it was that strong, it would pull all of her blood out from her body. After frazzling her mind. Smirks. Within the object, Lena watches a cell within her blood divide. This is clearly, happening within her own mind. Unless she has a microscope for eyes. Pauses. And a humanoid coalesces in front of her eyes, in real time. For me, this action cannot happen in normal space-time. Suggesting the cavern they are in exists outside Lena's universe. If that is the case, space and time do not exist as we know it. Pauses. After taking a few pot shots at the humanoid, Lena runs to the tunnel, leading back to the lighthouse. Rolls eyes. The tunnel is evenly spaced, and not circular, like the entrance. The tunnel's deformation does not look like an impact hole. Pauses. When Lena emerges from the tunnel, the humanoid is already there. In the lighthouse. This suggests, the humanoid requires Lena's presence to exist. In our three-dimensional space. Like a shadow, or reflection. Pauses. Lena and the humanoid interact for a while, with Lena learning to manipulate its behavior. The scene where the humanoid leans over Lena, unconscious on the floor, with Kane's charred remains behind them, highlights one of Lena's thought processes, which stimulate her to survive the encounter. Pauses. Every now and again, the humanoid resynchronizes with Lena, taking up mirror positions, or else some transformation of Lena's position. Pauses. Lena works out the humanoid doesn't have an intent other than what appears to her as mimicking. Having had experience of Kane's shadow, it was clear that her shadow had not inherited her will to survive. Lena maneuvers her shadow towards Kane's bag with the phosphorus grenades, and hands over one. Her shadow accepts the gift. Pauses. At this point, Lena appears to communicate to her shadow that it is best that it leaves, and that the dimensional intrusion is dangerous to all life. This empathy and understanding was not fully passed on to Kane's shadow, suggesting the process for Kane's shadow was incomplete. In biological terms, the cell of Lena and Kane duplicated. However, this does not appear to be the case in terms of memory and abilities. Pauses. Lena's shadow touches Kane's remains, and they catch fire, which was unlikely. Pauses. Lena's shadow touches the lighthouse walls, where the cells from Kane would have splattered, and had been transformed by the shimmer. Pauses. Lena watches from outside the lighthouse, as the meteorite's impact fracture catches fire. These fires appear to be more related to symbolism, that the interdimensional intrusion is closing. Pauses. Lena's shadow travels down the impact tunnel, into the cavern. Everything catches fire. It does not make physical sense that such material would oxidize this quickly. Probably the recounting of the experience is using language that allows others to understand, whilst the actual observations were scientific, just not describable using layman's terms. Pauses. Outside the salt crystal structures catch fire and collapse. Salt does not oxidize, and cannot catch fire. Clear carbon is called diamond, and burns at 900 degrees centigrade. Most likely the salt crystals, and the shimmer field, created concentrations of oxygen, and atmospheric hydrocarbons. And it was these gases that were burning. Anyway, the main point is that the shimmer ceased, after catching fire, or after the dimensional intrusion was closed. Whatever. Pauses. When the shimmer ceased to exist in Lena's universe, Kane's shadow's body stabilized, adding to the observation that the humanoids were shadows projected from outside Lena's universe, with the physical presence being formed from atmospheric hydrocarbons and water. Anyway, Kane's shadow remains on Earth, and appears to understand that it is not the original Kane. Pauses. Meanwhile, Lena knows he is not the original Kane, and that her body's cells were altered by the shimmer. The question is, I didn't know. How long they have together? Who does? Smirks. The science aspect, to Annihilation, is hardly touched by other reviewers. Even though one of Lena's team is a physicist, and Lena is a biologist. Most think of the English word annihilation, the complete destruction of something. Yet, the only thing that was annihilated was the shimmer. In physics, annihilation refers to the transfer of matter to energy, especially with respect to matter and antimatter annihilation. The ending of the film looks like particle collisions. Pauses. With the colors seen, typical to those seen in the atmosphere when the aurora borealis is observed, with the colors changing to more exotic colors. Pauses. And bubbles forming. Pauses. As Kane and Lena rest in bed, they discuss how the moon looks out of place when the sun is out. In the window, you can see the couple's reflected image. A lot of the filmography makes use of the natural beauty of nature, and how even death can be aesthetically interpreted pleasantly. For example, Leonardo da Vinci's scientific sketches are considered art. Science allows some detachment to be accomplished from gruesome reality. Pauses. The use of a water glass, and its refraction of its background, is used to express the fracturing caused by the shimmer. Pauses. Lena's fingers jump from left to right as they move. Pauses. Representing the connection between Lena and Kane's shadow. Pauses. The glass is used again, at the end, to illustrate Lena's alteration. Having traveled into Area X, Lena is not the same person she was before entering the shimmer. Pauses. Equally, Kane gives Lena a glass of opaque orange juice before leaving on his mission to the shimmer. Possibly an indicator to his frame of mind at the time. Opaque. Unconnected to Lena. Pauses. The use of a three-dimensional Mandelbrot object was an interesting choice. Mandelbrots look organic, but are mathematically created. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, the director chose to represent alien technology using a black obelisk. Using a cycling Mandelbrot object suggests it is alive, or in a state of flux, or perhaps an engine. The interdimensional intrusion could have been a probe, rather than random flotsam, intruding in three-dimensional space, time. Although the lack of purpose and intelligence suggests otherwise. Pauses. Mutual particle annihilation happens when a particle and its antiparticle collide. Matter is transformed from matter to energy. Pauses. The opposite of particle annihilation is particle pair production. In these interactions, energy is transformed into particles and antiparticles. Pauses. The shimmer's electromagnetic effects are observed when Lena's team attempt to use a magnetic compass. The compass needle is seen to jitter randomly, preventing navigation and messing with the team's electrical equipment. Pauses. Whilst discussing the shimmer, the term refraction is introduced. Simple light refraction is the splitting up of electromagnetic radiation. Most observably, visible light. The angled interfaces of a transparent medium, in which electromagnetic radiation travels at a different speed, causes the electromagnetic radiation to form frequency bands. In the shimmer's case, the wavering electromagnetic causes an impenetrable force field. Lena's team members lose 4 days after entering the shimmer. This suggests the shimmer's effects to humans were strongest at its perimeter. Probably due to the effect of the boundary splitting out the electromagnetic radiation. The initial map of Area X resembled a three-dimensional Mandelbrot object intercepting with the plane of the Earth's surface. Pauses. A kaleidoscope is a good example of how confusing, simple information becomes complex when multiple interfaces are introduced. On the map, the outer edges indicate more complex field structures, with the fields themselves acting as interfaces. Put simply, the density of matter was different between field lines. The flaw in this theory is that light did not appear refracted locally. Lena's team would have been disorientated a lot more if distances appeared shorter and longer than they were, even deep within Area X. Pauses. The effect on cells was illustrated through the use of color. The color of a cell is due to the elements the cell contains, and the reflected light. The only explanation I can think of for this difference is the absorption of matter from another dimension. A cell made of antimatter would appear a different color. Pauses. DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid can be altered through interactions with high-energy particles. This is part of the evolution of nature. Strong magnetic fields can cause DNA to fracture in places, potentially causing mutations in real time, if the field is strong enough. Hopefully field strengths less than 10 Tesla are inert, otherwise, MRI scanners are causing irreversible damage. Pauses. DNA made from antimatter is a problem. Since antimatter is not readily available in the abundances required to sustain any life, based on antimatter. Most likely, the shimmer accelerates DNA mutations rapidly, based on some resonance harmonic with other dimensions. The implication being, this accelerates humanoid development. Unless it is a case of, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Pauses. A few Annihilation reviews discuss the Ouroboros tattoo on Lena's arm. While it is understandable that it is a point of discussion, Ouroboros symbolizes rebirth or renewal. A tattoo is not part of DNA. There is no way, scientifically, the tattoo could be transferred to Lena from another team member. More likely is that another team member tattooed Lena as part of the missing 4 days, in an act of bonding. The only time general replication of items was observed was when the shadow humanoids were created. With these occurrences happening at the lighthouse, inside the cavern. The symbology is important, since Lena takes the opportunity to rebirth her marriage with Cain. Rolls eyes. A pan-dimensional marriage counselor provides a unique marital solution. With minimum casualties, under the circumstances. Smirks. Peace, I am out of here, word up. Exit stage left.